Hi everyone, my name is Julie. This is Keep Calm with Books and Coffee. I talk about books on this channel, mainly books about magic, which is going to be the main focus today. If you want to see more of that, you can hit the subscription button down below. And today we're going to be doing my R Fantasy TBR, or pile of possibilities, for the year. Now, I know I've been putting out a lot of TBRs recently. I think this is the third one in like a few weeks, but they've been popping up so organically. Like, I was really excited to post my spring TBR, and then April came, and now a few of my friends have convinced me that I need to do the Reddit fantasy challenge for the year, because this has sounded fun for years. I've heard people talk about doing this, but I have never joined in. I've either missed the beginning or remembered way too late. So I have caught it at the beginning this year. So we're going to try to do this challenge. Now, the person that I have seen sort of be the point of origin on BookTube is Covers with Cassidy, but I've also seen Bree from Fort Paws in a book do this for a couple of years now, and a few of my other friends are also going to be doing this year, and I am really excited to participate as well. The R Fantasy Challenge happens on Reddit, where they have a list of prompts and rules, and basically a bingo board that you can either get a bingo on or try to black out the board. I have picked at least one book for each prompt to try and do a blackout, but I don't know if this will happen. I read only about 100 to 125 books a year, and this is 25 in itself, so we will see where we get to, but I'm excited to give this a try. So there are a couple of rules in that you have to use one book for one square. You can't use a book for multiple squares. You also can't repeat authors, and you can only do one reread. So those are the basic rules for this, and I have never participated before, so I actually decided to just go for the basic prompts. There is a hero mode and a hard mode, and I will probably hit hero mode since I review the books I read, so that's basically hero mode, to review each book, so we will probably hit that. But hard mode is like an extra bit on top of each prompt. So for example, the first prompt is first book in a series, and then you had to choose a book with more than 3 installments, longer than a trilogy, for the first prompt if you wanted to do hard mode. So for some of these, actually a lot of these, I was able to fit in a book that fit hard mode, but not all of them. And since this is my first time doing it, I decided I'm not going to increase the difficulty this time. We're just going to try and do the basics. So here's where things are about to get messy, because I've tried to fit as many of my physical TBR books into these prompts as possible. I've succeeded for the most part, so I'm going to show you as many of these books as possible. So things are about to get messy around me where you can't see them. So as we go through these, I'm obviously going to be showing you my TBR possibilities, but I'm also going to show a few recommendations I may have. Some of them may be obvious, some of them may not, and I'm not going to have ones for each prompt, but there are a few prompts that I thought I have recommendations for and might just spark some ideas for people. So the first prompt is one to ease us in with, and it is a first book in a series. And I think any fantasy reader has a pretty easy time with this, because there is always a new series to start. It's more usually the continuing and finishing the series that is the problem for us. So I've chosen 2 possibilities for this. I had one written down, and then I saw another one, and I was like, that would also work. So both of these would actually fit hard mode. And the first is Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey. This is the first book in the Expanse series, and I believe this is a 9-book series that I've been wanting to try, so that one would fit. And then I also have the first book in the Guild Hunter series by Nalani Singh, which is Angel's Blood, and this is a paranormal romance series that I believe is like 20 books, so this one would also fit. The next prompt is an alliterative title, which means you have to have at least 2 words in the title start with the same letter. So I'm choosing A Song of Silver Flame Like Night by Amelie Wen Zhao. This was already on my TBR for April, so I decided to put it on here as well, because hopefully I will get to this and it fits. Next up is Under the Surface, which is underground or undersea for part of the book, and for this I've chosen Fathom Folk, which is really hard to see with this very shiny cover. This just recently came in my Illumicrate box, so this is super pretty, super excited to have this, and it just seemed to fit perfect, so I put it right on this TBR. Next up is a very popular choice, and that is Criminals. And I am excited to choose City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. I have not tried this series yet, and I have been wanting to. This has to do with a con artist, so I'm excited to try it. I think there will be other options on my TBR for this, but this is the one that immediately came to mind for me. The fifth prompt is Dreams. A character has to experience some kind of dreams, or dreams have to take place in the story, and I am choosing Call Down the Hawk by Maggie Stiefvater. This trilogy is literally called the Dreamer Trilogy. Dreams have a very significant part in the Raven cycle as well as this trilogy, so I'd really like to motivate myself to get to trying this new series by rereading the Raven cycle this year and then jumping into Call Down the Hawk. Then we have entitled animals, so an animal has to be in a title, and for this I've chosen The Tiger's Daughter by Kay Arsenault Rivera. I've been wanting to read this for years, and I think this is on my 24 and 24 for the year, so another reason to pick this one. Then we have Bard, so the main character has to be a bard, musician, poet, or storyteller, and since I've seen a few people pick this, I also was reminded that this is a big part of this book, and I want to read the sequel to A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross, so I'm choosing A Fire Endless for this. I read A River Enchanted earlier this year and had a good time with it, so I'd like to just read this book and finish out the duology, even though I don't own this one. It seemed like the perfect pick. The next prompt is Prologues and Epilogue. Read a book that has either a prologue or an epilogue, and this has both. This is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I already have to read this year, and I decided to incorporate it into this TBR. I am getting some chunky books on this TBR as well as some very classic fantasy, so I'm excited that this is my first year participating, and so much of this that's already on my TBR is fitting. The next prompt is self-published or indie published, and I have a few KJ Charles books still floating around on my TBR, both my digital and physical TBR that I might use for this, but I also kind of went looking into the Reddit subgroup to try and get some ideas for this, because I am not a connoisseur of self-published books. I just don't know a whole lot about that section of fantasy. So one that grabbed my attention was A Magical Inheritance by Krista D. Ball. And this sounded like something that's right up my alley and just seemed like it jumped out at me. So either one of these things could be ones that I pick. I haven't really decided yet, and I might explore a little further and see if I can find a book for this prompt, but those were some early possibilities for me. The next prompt is Romantasy, and this prompt is pretty broad in that it's just a fantasy that has to have some kind of romance subplot. So a lot of the books that I have on my physical TBR would work for this. However, the hard mode and one I want to participate in is that this features a LGBT plus romance. And so I've chosen Storm Song by C.L. Polk, which is the sequel to Witchmark by them, and I have wanted to jump further into this series for a while, so this seemed like a good way to kind of keep this on my radar for the next year. But there's other things I could pick, both that have a queer romance and that don't, on my physical TBR if I wanted to just end up reading something that I own. Then we have the prompt of Dark Academia, and for this, again, the prompt is pretty broad in that it just has to fit the aesthetic. I think I'm choosing Hellbent for this. I do have Babel as well as the Atlas 6 on my physical TBR, but I'd kind of like to continue on with the Alex Stern series. And since the first book was Dark Academia, I'm assuming the second book is too. I don't know for sure, but that's what I'm assuming is next. And I'm excited for this one. I'm excited to continue on and get into this series further, but I just really want to continue it. So even though those are also there and could fit this, I really want to read Hellbent Prompt number 12 is multi-POV, read a book with at least 3 points of view. And for this, I have chosen The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin because I haven't read this yet and I've been wanting to. I'm also going to have to read this for a TBR in review video because it has such a high rating on Goodreads that it is definitely going to make it into, the high category for its year. So I am excited to read this and have double reason to get it on my TBR sooner rather than later. And then the published in 2024 prompt, I am going to use A Love Song for Ricky Wilde by Tia Williams. This is a 2024 release that I have had my eye on for a few months now, ever since I saw Aoife talk about it in February. So I also started this, so I definitely want to continue reading it. And I think I put this on my April TBR. I think I did. I think it was on that pile when I just went over, but the piles are slowly getting destroyed as I pull more and more off, so I don't know anymore. Next up is a character with a disability, and for this I'm choosing Sunbringer by Hannah Canner. This is the sequel to Godkiller, which I loved last year, and I'm really excited to get to this book. In this, one of our main characters, Kissin, is an amputee, and I just am thrilled to get to this book, so I definitely wanted to fit it onto this TBR somewhere. The next prompt is a book published in the 1990s, and for this I have taken Brittany's suggestion of putting Eye of the World by Robert Jordan on here, and this is going to be a challenge because I really want to get caught up on the read along, but I don't know that I can at this point. But I'm gonna try. I at least want to try to start the series. I'm not sure if this is going to be a series for me, but it's one that I have just had my interest piqued about recently, and since it fit this prompt, I threw it on here. The next prompt is Orcs, Trolls, and Goblins, oh my, and it's a read a book featuring orcs, trolls, or goblins, and the hard mode is to have a main character. So I think this character's name is Syrah, and she is a troll, one of the main characters in Unnatural Magic by C.M. Wagoner. So I am going to put this on there. I've had this for a couple of years, and one of the main characters is a troll. So if you're still looking for suggestions for that prompt, I can't say if this is good or not, but it's one that has piqued my interest and has a troll main character. Prompt number 17 is a space opera, and for this I'm choosing Record of a Spaceborne Few, which is the third book in the Wayfarer's Companion series by Becky Chambers. I read the second installment, I think, last year, and I want to keep moving through this series, so this was the perfect opportunity to get this on a TBR. Next up is an author of color, and for this one I've chosen The Conductors by Nicole Glover. This does, I think, fit the hard mode of it being a debut author from the last 5 years. This was published in 2021, and I think it is her debut. So, and it's been on my TBR for a couple of years, so I want to try to check this out. The next prompt is survival, and this is one that I haven't picked a specific book for. I think it's probably going to end up being some kind of dystopian, but I haven't picked a specific one. I keep thinking of Furyborn by Clara LeGrand because the first chapter that I read of that book last year for my TBR and review project was very much like about survival in that first chapter, but I don't know if that's going to be the one that that's going to be the whole theme of the book. So we'll see what ends up fitting for this, because I think this is going to be one that's more organic, either a dystopian or, some kind of fantasy story that I read that we're really focused on surviving, or maybe a cli-fi. We'll see. I just haven't picked a specific one for this because it's not something that I could settle on based on the suggestions and ones I was looking at my TBR. I kind of have this one still up in the air. The next prompt is also going to be one that might end up changing or being a different book, because it's judge a book by the cover. Choose a book because you like the cover. And for this, I chose Starling House by Alex E. Haro. And basically I let this Illumicrate come because of the vibes of the box and that I had seen Starling House around and thought that that was the book for this month and that it was going to be pretty. So I didn't really find out anything more about it except for the vibes of the box. So I'm thinking that this would count. But also, if I have the opportunity, I will just go into my bookstore and buy a random fantasy book based on the cover. But this is my pick for now, off of my TBR. Then we have Set in a Small Town. The primary setting has to be a small town, and I believe that the X-Hex fits. It seems like it does because the main character comes back from somewhere to her hometown, and that just feels small towny to me. So this is one that I am interested in trying, but I'll have to see if this fits when I actually get to it. Number 22 is to read 5 SFF short stories. Say that 5 times fast. But the hard mode is to read an entire speculative anthology or collection. So I was looking through my library's like short story collections, and I found these like 4 that I think will work for this. So I'm probably going to end up reading a collection. All of these sounded interesting. All of these have a variety of authors in them. So these are some possibilities, but again, not quite 100% sure what I'm going to pick for this, but these all seemed like good options. Number 23 is Eldritch Creatures, and I'm going to read the prompt directly from them because I was not 100% sure what this meant. To read a book featuring a being that is uncanny, unearthly, and weird. This can be a god or a monster from another plane or realm and is usually beyond mortal understanding. So, and the hard mode is the book is not related to the Cthulhu mythos, which is interesting. So for this, I think the one I saw on the sort of suggestion boards that I wanted to read at this point is Ring Shout by Peter Jolly Clark, because I really liked Clark's other books, namely A Master of Jinn. If anything else ends up fitting from my TBR, I will prioritize that, but after reading the description and the suggestions, I don't know that I have anything that really fits over here. As we get to the end here, I have a lot more that's not quite a set in stone, but that's not a bad thing. It's just like, these are the possibilities. These are things that might change. This is all subject to change. Who knows who I'll be in a year. Number 24 is reference material. So basically to have something in the book like a map or a glossary, or for this, it is called Key to Dates, Gods, and Other Useful Terms in the front of Saint Death's Daughter by C.S.E. Cooney. I'm excited for this one. I've been wanting to read it for a while, and it's just one that's kind of been on my TBR and it keeps grabbing my attention because it's so bright pink. So I'd like to try it to be this one. However, there's also lots of books that have maps in them, so it might switch up. The final prompt is book club or read along book, and since I'm not doing hard mode, I can choose any past or active R fantasy book club, and as well as past or active fantasy read along. So they have a whole list on their Goodreads page, and the one that I found that I wanted to pick was The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy by Megan Bannon. So I'm excited for this one, and I have wanted to read this for a while, and I just haven't gotten to it, so I'm making an excuse to get to it because it sounds perfect for me. Really sounds perfect for me. So those are the 25 R fantasy prompts for this year's challenge. This starts on April 1st and ends March 31st, so you still have plenty of time to join if you would like to. I am excited to try this year. Please let me know if you have any other suggestions for any of these prompts, or if you are participating. I'd love to know. But that is it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!